Good afternoon, evening, or morning to you, wherever in the world you are right now. I'm Yugal-Kishor Das alongside Bhaktirasa, and this is Towards Authentic Dialogue, TAD Talks. And today we have a very special guest, a longtime friend of Bhaktirasa. Her name is White Star. And White Star is a shamanic healer, a spiritual teacher, and an author synthesizing Native American practices, self-empowerment ritual, and feminine spirituality. She currently teaches and has a healing practice through the Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge in her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Her book, Calling from the Heart, An Invitation to Your Soul Companion, was published in 2017. And White Star, it's a pleasure to have you on.
It's great to be here. I was really happy to get the invitation because we're working with unconditional love through the Medicine Lodge last year. This year, it'll be a 7-year cycle that we're delving into different aspects of unconditional love. And so this was just so perfect for the invite. So thank you.
Yeah, great. And I've known White Star for quite a while, and it's a real pleasure to sit with you here today in this circle. So thank you for accepting an invitation.
Yeah.
So one thing I was wondering, just to begin with, is how do you conceive of unconditional love? What is your conception of unconditional love?
Well, I can tell you what it is in this moment, because it's always expanding, actually. But of course, since we scheduled this talk and with the themes for the year centering around unconditional love, the place I start with is that we are in a place on this planet where we actually have to have a qualifier for the word love, right? So we have to say unconditional love because most of us, if not all of us, grew up with conditional love. So through our family of origin and the beliefs in our society, and there were all these conditions on our behavior, right? So we may have known that we were loved, but we also knew that we were mostly not enough and too much, kind of simultaneously, and never knowing, how to navigate all of that. And just knowing that most of us felt like we had to earn the love that we have in our life, or we had to, have certain qualities in order to be lovable and things. So even though we have to have that qualifier, it's still important because we're talking about the kind of love that we actually, none of us totally know anything about. So it's kind of an unknown for all of us, right? And so, but what gives us little signs and signals is the love that we give and receive from animals, because that is almost always unconditional love because there's no ego involved. And the relationships that we have with babies, with very, very small children. So, because again, the ego isn't developed. So that love is one that we may not be showing them unconditional love, but hopefully we are. But that love that comes back to us is totally in that vein. So that's where we're coming from. For me, let's say my goal or my aspiration is to be childlike, not childish. Yeah. So
I'm chuckling because these are words and descriptions that that I have said, that my friends have said, that it's like not even an echo. It's just like, wow, the words, the heart, the meaning behind it, everything, the direction. It's so much on the same page that it's like, what? It's like so uncanny and
Well,
so
and
beautiful.
yes, and so this, it does transcend place, time, religious upbringing, all of this. Like there is an inner knowing, an inner sense about how to be in a reciprocal relationship with all of life that is based on love, right? That is not for objectifying ourselves or others. And there is something within us that absolutely resonates to that and knows that that is possible. So it's possible within us, it's possible to have that in our families, our communities, our world. We know that it is possible. And that's sometimes why we can get so discouraged or feel like, okay, it's not possible, because there's so much that's coming back to us that is saying, oh, that's foolish, that's crazy, that's, that's pie in the sky, no one's going to be like that. My Cherokee teacher, Will Rocking Bear, he made a distinction, which I loved, because often us two-leggeds will say, oh, well, you can't expect me to be loving all the time, or to forgive, or to do this, that, because I'm only human, right? Or of course I'm going to be selfish. Of course I'm going to be self-centered. Of course I may try to manipulate you to get more love because, I'm only human, right? So, but he talked about being a sacred human being. And so that's the expanded version of us, right? So the other one is that part that's very constricted and closed in and having to guard ourselves and protect ourselves and then figure out, how to get what we want from that place. And it's very, very difficult. And then that's when we end up exploiting and abusing ourselves and others, right, to try to get what we want. But when we're from that sacred human being, that's the alignment that we have with all of us, with this huge, vast, limitless self that we might call the soul or the spirit, the heart, but we are pure energy, right? We can't be created. We can't be destroyed. It just all changes form, but we have that intelligence. We have consciousness. We have awareness. Yeah. So that light of awareness is what many of us are looking for and aspiring to and developing practices for, right? So to stay in that light of awareness is then to be in that expanded state. From there, we choose. That's the action part of that unconditional love, is the choice. I choose to love. Now, this is where I'm going to suggest that we separate out the person, the being, that large self, from behavior. So when my son was growing up, I was very careful to say, I love you, and this behavior is not acceptable. But you are not that behavior, because you can change that behavior because you're driving the car, right? So you can turn right or left, you can stop, you can park in a different way, you can choose to drive slow or fast. So that's the choice part of choosing to love, but also still respecting ourselves, respecting others, it's not a throw down, walk on me kind of, which sometimes we get confused. Oh, well, I want to be loving, and so I'm gonna, give them a pass for the 20th time, you know. And so that's where we separate out. No, that behavior is hurtful, it's harmful, it's, let's work on that, right? We can do better than that. But I love you. So, and this is very much in line with the native teachings as I've experienced them and learned from them. So we're not the behavior. You are mean. No. You are acting mean. Your behavior is hurtful, but you are not that. So it's separating that out for ourselves as well. I mean, they've shown the most critical words that ever cross our mind are aimed inward. They're aimed at ourselves.
Yeah.
So because we internalized all that from outer, from our parents and siblings, but teachers, school, other kids, like all of it was to say, you're not enough and you're too much.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I wanted to explore with you was the relationship between self-love and unconditional love.
Mm.
The necessity, the relationship, and the back and forth of those. So,
well, just like we've been inculcated, right? I mean, just totally submerged in a culture that objectifies, and even in the ways and traditions that we call more spiritual, they're still affected by some of that, right? So it's all these I want to be in the white light, right? I want to be in the light. Well, okay, so I'm going to circle us around to a cosmic view, and everything we see in the sky, our sun, all the other stars, the planet, all those are reflecting light or are light. So they are objects, right? But what's surrounding all of that is the fabric of the universe, and that's to me the web of life, and it is black light. And this is a shamanic term that means holding everything together. So anytime we say, oh, well, this light is better than this light, or I only need this light, then it's going to be out of whack, right? It's not going to be in balance. So we have to, and so this applies to the parts of us that are ugly and we don't want people to know about us, right? And that's what Jung called the shadow. And it's just all those things that we were taught that it's not okay to be. So for example, in my family, it was not okay to not be capable, right? You got big kudos for any time you could handle anything, with and be capable. So if you were going to do it, you had to do it well. You had to do it, all these parameters on it. And so if you weren't that, then you would hide, you would lie, you would do all these things to say, oh, no, that wasn't me, right? I didn't do that. So that's the loving ourselves part. And that's where we have to start. We have to start saying, okay, I love all of me. I don't like all of my behaviors. I don't like it when I'm petty. But I still have to love myself even when I'm petty or ignorant and arrogant and have hurt someone's feelings or this or that. Like, I have to take responsibility for that. But I also have to say, okay, we're gonna do better, right? But I'm still gonna love myself. So we have to start there and not call ourselves all those names and labels and all those hurtful things. So, Bhaktirasa, this brings me up to another point that I wanted to make sure we covered. And that is, we were all taught, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? But we know that's not true. Words do have an effect. So our words are very powerful. And that's why when we're praying, when we're stating our gratitudes, we want to say them out loud. So we're taking them out of the mental realm, putting them into the ethers, carries incredible power. And so, yes, words can hurt someone incredibly. And what happens is we say that out loud. How many times have we looked in the mirror and said, "Oh, you stupid idiot." Right? No one can relate to that. What are you doing? But also now I'm going to take it another layer in our thoughts. Okay, so again, we were taught it's okay to think it, just as long as you don't either say it or do it, right? So I can think to myself, I want to, maim you and kill you and, hurt you and all this stuff. But as long as I don't act on it, it's okay. And now we're finding out that actually that has just as much or even more power than the words and the actions. So now we're to the point where we have to be looking at our thoughts and what is actually okay to think and have those thoughts. So, and the reason we know this is through a lot of experiments that have been done with Masaru Emoto with the water, and people just sending energy, sending thoughts. I love you, I love you, I love you. And then freezing that water, slicing it, putting it under a microscope, and the most beautiful, gorgeous crystalline shapes, right? And then they sent, "Oh, you're ugly and you're evil and we hate you," and then they do the same thing and it's all misshapen and it's all just not in its pure state. So it's been warped, right? It's been distorted. It's been interfered with. So, and I love the experiments that they do in some of the schools where they have two plants that are the same age. They've been planted at the same time. They get the same light, the same water. One is labeled the good plant. The other one is the bad plant, right? So the kids come up in between classes and they're lavishing words and thoughts, to the plant that's the good plant, and the other one they just take everything out on that plant. And of course, which one blooms and blossoms, and yeah. So I mean, these are
that poor bad plant.
I know. Like, thank you for sacrificing yourself for this, so that us humans can see the tangible effects of what we're doing, right? So this is where I'm working with this unconditional love. We have to start within ourselves. We cannot have it for anyone else if we don't have it for ourselves. We know this, right? So anytime we can catch ourselves, then we don't want to go into that blame, shame, punishment mode, because then we're right back in that spiral. But we want to say, I noticed that I let my fear run amok and run all over and just coat everything, and I take responsibility for it. I call that energy back to me, and I'm gonna just love on it. I'm gonna love it so that it doesn't have to have that fear. So we are talking about the way I love that I've learned is it's living ceremony. We are living in ceremony, right? It's not something we go into or out of. It's something that we're able to start holding that ceremonial space within ourselves. And yes, we need each other to remind us, right? I know how to check with my team of higher assistants, and I've been doing that since I was a teenager, and showing other people how to do that. And sometimes I'm in a real bind and a quandary, and I'm this and that and everything, and then my husband will say, well, did you check with your, I was like, oh yeah, good idea. So we all need each other to remind each other that we know how to do this, right? That we have this ability to open ourselves, to keep opening and expanding ourselves instead of contracting in and being only like kind of a tunnel vision. Just keep opening up energetically, and we call that love because our heart is open. So I know that fear and love, it's very difficult for them to occupy the same space at the same time. So I don't want to push fear away because it just gets stronger. You know, it loves to spar, right? So the more I spar with it, the stronger it gets. And then I have to get stronger, and then it gets stronger. So I just welcome it in and say, come along for the ride. You're not going to drive the car, but you can be in the back seat. Right? You can come along. I'm inviting you to sit at the table with us. We're not going to exclude you. We're not going to ostracize. We're not going to make you other. But you don't get to control what's going on.
It's interesting. Earlier, you used the word, you said interference, and I heard interference.
Yes. Uh-huh. Entering fear. Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have brought out so many points. I don't even know where to begin.
I know. I like to just throw it all, and then people can start sorting
under
through.
a mountain of honey or something. I think I'll go back to the very beginning when you started speaking about unconditional love and how we can experience that most with our relationships with children and animals.
And nature. I should have just said because I've experienced such close, loving relationships with tree people and plant people and especially stone people. But also the water beings and the wind people. Oh my gosh, the cloud people and I, we just have this loving thing going on, you know, just from when I was a child. I would just go out and lay in the backyard and talk to the clouds. They'd talk to me and they'd show shapes, and I'd send them energy and they'd disappear. And, you know, many of us have done some of that. But so we know how to have these relationships. And that's what in the indigenous traditions we call our planetary family. But it is the web of life. It takes all those strands for it to be healthy and happy. And so anything that when we start as two-leggeds feeling too isolated from life, that's when we go into our fear and our worry and this and that and trying to figure everything out intellectually or with our left brain.
Yeah, try to control it.
Yes, because we think that if we can wrap our mind around it, then we can control it.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
Yeah, so the one thing I was wanting to go toward was with the children and the animals. And perhaps with nature also,
Mhm.
is this idea of vulnerability.
Mm.
It seems that children and animals, like I have a relationship with a family of raccoons, and every day they come
Yeah,
for dinner.
yeah.
And the one thing I learned about it, what it was that I really was so wonderful to me, was trust.
Mm.
That we developed trust, and I knew that I could trust these animals to eat out of my hand, to come close with no problem, because they trusted me.
Mhm. Mhm.
They had to trust me to come within range. So that the relationship between trust and vulnerability,
Mm.
unconditional love, it's
Yes,
like there's some relationship there.
absolutely, absolutely. I definitely see them all twined together, making that braid of a bridge to of connection.
Yeah.
And we've all, I think most of us have experienced that with some being somewhere, sometime.
Yeah.
And so it our real challenge is with each other, with two-leggeds, because of our egos and all the domestication that we've absorbed throughout thousands of years. So it's not new, this domestication, but I think that we are in a place energetically within our cosmic location of planet Earth and our solar system, and going around the Milky Way, where we're in a more direct alignment with the center of our galaxy than we have been for, I don't know how long, 200,000 years, 250,000 years, like
Give or take.
yeah, really. It doesn't matter, but we are, and that's why the astrophysicists are so excited, because they can study this black hole that's at the center of our galaxy, and we're finding out all kinds of things about it. But those waves of energy are coming more directly over us than they have for a while. So that's where people are feeling like they have to move right or left, up or down, like where they are isn't working. A lot of people say they feel stuck, right? And it just means that these energies are activating energies within us that are helping us to align more to our biggest self. So that's very difficult to see in our outer reality, because it looks like it's going the other way, but it is in response to those waves. And again, when you look at the whole span of Earth and put it on like a 24 hours, human beings have been on the planet for like what, 2 seconds, 3 seconds out of that 24 hours. So we really truly are the new kids on the block, and that's why all of the rest of that planetary family has so much to share with us, and we can learn so much of how to be in reciprocal relationships, because nature shows us that it is not this evolution of the fittest. It's the evolution of who works together the most to help support each other to allow that growth to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting that you mention evolution. I was gonna go there at one point in saying that having a growth or a learning mindset, like we are part of nature, and nature itself makes mistakes sometimes, but it learns from those mistakes, and that's how everything actually evolves. For example, Darwin's early experiments with finches in the Galapagos Islands, he saw that over time, the shape of the beak evolves according to the habitat, the environment, the kind of nut that the bird has access to. Um, So it's really trial and error. And it pulls one other thought, and it's somewhat related, but in mentioning love and nature, fear is also maybe one of the most natural feelings. We see it in nature. We see animals become afraid. We know, of course, what that feeling is. I mean, if I can put it in my own words, it's a kind of alert and trying to tune into and perceive what is a threat. And maybe then evaluate it and see that it's not actually a threat. Um, but of course, animals, the world as such is wild and is inherently threatening in some sense.
Oh,
So
well,
what is the balance between, accepting that fact and living in accord with that and realizing that yes, fate, whatever you want to call it, eventually will catch up to you. You can't control everything, but at the same time, we do have some role in actively curating the shared experience.
hmm. Well, I love how what I hear you talking about, Yugal, is that adaptability, right? So as conditions change and if we are open and our hand, like this is a good example, if our hands are open, then we can receive, we can do different things, and we have these opposable thumbs for a reason, and we can work with things. So and that to me means we're adaptable, we're agile, we're fluid, because we truly are wild as well. And so that is why when we go out in nature, we almost, unless we've been taught otherwise or had a specific experience that says all of nature is this way, which we know that's not going to actually be true, then we feel more expansive. When we're in the woods, at the beach, up on a mountain, looking at the valley, like we feel more expansive because we actually are more feral and wild. And we need that. We need that to regenerate our energy. We are so wired for that even just looking out the window at trees enhances our health. Even if someone can't actually even go outside, as long as they can see nature, it still has that healing property for them. Not as much maybe as if they were able to go out, but I mean, that just shows how much we are interconnected with all the beings that are here on this planet.
Yeah.
So this level of unconditional love has been interfered with because we were taught that life is a series of hierarchies. And that takes us out of the circular spiral relational field of the web of life. So the more we have been indoctrinated into that and our belief systems are in accordance with that, then our perception of life will back us up and say, well, see, this is right because this is happening. And and because that's what we're operating in, is that hierarchy.
Exactly.
So whether it's white supremacy, which is all around the planet, male supremacy, which is all around the planet, corporate supremacy, or I should say profit supremacy, right? As long as you're making a profit, you can hurt other people, the earth, all that stuff. But then we come, to me, the overriding hierarchy is humans over the planet, right? That somehow humans have this mandate that they can do anything. So it's human supremacy, which from everything I have seen and felt and experienced is a fallacy. It's an illusion because we are the new kids. It's like saying the 6-month-old, has control of everything. And sometimes they do.
Good point.
Yes, we know if you've been around babies, sometimes, yes, it does look like that for a little while. But anyway, what I'm saying is that indigenous point of view of that everything is circular, it's not linear. And those hierarchies depend on a linear mindset to keep perpetuating themselves. And that means that everything's on a line, right? So there's dualities and there's opposites, and they can never be reconciled. But once you put that line into a circle, then those opposites are right next to each other. And then yes, that contradiction absolutely can be navigated. And that's what we call collaboration. That reciprocal win-win. But you really can't do that if you're operating on that linear mindset.
No, I can't help. I mean, it's just burning a hole through my brain. Seeing but do we dare bring in masculinity and femininity?
Mm-hmm.
From what I had studied in college, actually, when I did an honors thesis on gender differences in moral development.
Mm.
And there is a trajectory, a mindset, the way the mind works. Typically, of course, all of this is typical, but the masculine is linear thinking. A plus B equals C. That's it. And the feminine way of thinking is more contextual. It's more circular. It is away from the linear. And actually, I just read something the other day that kind of brought out that this toxic, not masculinity, but toxic masculinity.
Mm. Yep.
The pyramidal, so much of our problems that exist in the world today are, we can tie back to a toxic form of masculinity. And how there's now this call for feminine spirituality and femininity to actually take its place in the world, and to help heal the toxic aspects of
having a seat at the table, perhaps not replacing, because that's a fear. That's pretty much the driving fear of these supremacy groups. There was that chant in Charlottesville whenever the neo-Nazis descended upon it, saying, "Jews will not replace us." I'm sorry, it's an ugly saying, but it's what was said. So there's a deep fear about being invalidated, being made obsolete. How I see is the equal sides to the at the equal space at the table and equal voice.
Again, in that table, it's a round table.
Yeah.
It's the round table.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I think about all of that is the word patriarchy with a capital P, right? So, and it harms men, it harms women, it harms children, it harms the earth.
Yeah.
So, so I don't, some people have a hard time getting caught in the masculine feminine, right? Absolutely. And the divine feminine and the toxic masculine, and
these words you don't want to.
I know, anytime there's labels, and yeah, I know it can get tricky. So
we need to talk about these things at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And how do we find words, right? Like, so, because our English language is just so limited.
So we'll use the wrong ones until we find the right ones.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And so for all of us, we have from what I can see, we have these hierarchies that we have internalized. Okay. And then we either go with them or we resist or rebel against them in some form or fashion. And so with this, let's go back to the unconditional love and this relationship with the circle of life or the web of life, that there comes a time where we have to, this is where our choice comes in. Do I choose to be in relation with the all, or just one tiny slice of it? So if someone has decided that there's only this one little tiny slice that is worth anything, then I have to say for myself, that's not true for me. So when I hear someone say something, or I see someone doing something, my ears and my eyes take that in, and then my whole being is trying to make sense of that and trying to fit that in somehow. It's like a puzzle piece, right? Well, it's got to fit somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so it's like we're trying to digest it. Can't be digested because it's actually not true for us. So then I say, and this is like under my breath, because it has nothing to do with that other person or that outer in that moment, that's not true for me. And it's to remind myself, it's like having the last word with myself, so that I am not taking in that. So as a dreamer, as a healer, which I feel like all of us really are healers and dreamers, because it's intrinsic within us, because we are energy and intelligence and life force. We have to know what's going on around us, and we also have to hold a vision of what is congruent for us. So that vision is, for me, where we are in reciprocal relations, where we have collaboration, where we have community, we don't have hierarchies of leadership. We have in the Cherokee, the women, the grandmothers, the elders would come together, and they would choose the chiefs. They would choose whether we go to war. They would choose this and that, but all of them, and sometimes it would take a really long time. Or the war councils, once the war chief had his council, sometimes they would talk all night about, okay, do we really do this or not? And the young ones are, yeah, let's go get him. And the older ones are, well, let's wait about this, But it took everybody, and everybody's say was valuable and was received, and action wouldn't happen until a consensus was reached. So we absolutely have that ability and that like a collective awareness of how to do that, whether it's been modeled in our families or not. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a family of 5. I was the youngest, but we each got a vote. It was like this democratic little unit, right? But mostly just between the 3 kids. And so my brother was in the middle, my older sister, and me being the youngest, I would usually side with my sister. So it was almost always 2 to 1. I was always the deciding vote. We didn't learn about consensus, right? We didn't learn about, oh, well, okay, you really want that show and we really want this one. And so this week we'll do it this way and next week we'll do it the other way, right? Like we didn't learn that. It was just this brutal, like, okay, the majority gets to do what they want to do. And that's a starting place. Pretty good one compared to some of the other systems. But we want to go even further into more of a level of consensus where there is a collaboration, there is, and this is, what a lot of the people that are I can't think of the names right now, but they're the foreign attaches that they go and do different the ambassadors and things like that. That's the reality of it, and it's not this quid pro quo so much, but it's like, and especially if we have like from the indigenous point of view, what is going to be the greatest good for the greatest number of people, right? And so what I learned from Rocking Bear, this saying is, does your life grow corn? So are you living your life in a way that is congruent with all of life so that you can take care of yourself, you can feed yourself, you have the resources to take care of yourself and the resources to share? So those indigenous communities were incredibly generous, right? And that's why when the Europeans came over, they couldn't believe there was no hunger. There was, all the things that they were experiencing, where it was this whole pecking order, right, into this whole hierarchy, it wasn't there. Everybody took care of everybody. Now, when you're a smaller unit like that, it makes it a little easier, but still, we don't have that modeled really in our families too much, and small groups, but we can. So to me, this is why we're exploring this whole unconditional love, and really, what does that look like for me in my life, moment to moment? Because it's not an intellectual idea. It's not about forgiving everybody everything, because in the shamanic traditions, what I've learned is that forgiveness is an energetic ceremony where you call back energy that you have put on other people through ignorance and arrogance, and giving back the energy that other people put on you that was toxic, that did burn, that did create that hurt, and then you giving that energy back because it doesn't belong to us. So it is a clearing. It's a way of clearing. That's what forgiveness is, giving back what doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending ceremony, right?
A funny way of saying that is this saying that not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yes.
Like, this is not my energy. What you've just dumped on me doesn't actually belong.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's, yes. And so, and so I would recommend that that's a saying that would best be said under your breath. Because nobody wants to hear, oh, what? These, because then it makes the monkeys look bad, right? And they're not bad. I don't want anyone denigrating any animal. But, huh?
Something that came up for me a little earlier was when you're talking about, again, animals and how they may model what you said would be unconditional love, or at least a clue for what that would look like and what that would mean. The idea of self-sacrifice also came up for me, because you see that in nature where I mean, what else could love possibly look like if it didn't mean foregoing your own safety? If the time is critical for posterity, for the future generations. I mean, this is probably what the war councils, a big question of what the war councils would be deciding on.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and that some things, some usurper cannot be fully included at this moment. Some things need driven out of the circle, right? Sometimes there's an energy that does need driven out, and it might not be able to be included. So can unconditional love also take on shades of what seemingly is conditions, so that there's again safety from which we can then expand the circle again?
So the Native people, from what I understand, they did use ostracizing as a last resort, but they also had villages that were rehabilitation villages. So, say in anger, you did take someone's life. If you could get out of town fast enough, out of the village fast enough, and make it to one of these peace villages,
Mm.
then you stayed there until the elders felt like you had reached a level of understanding and awareness to where you were not going to be reacting in the same way, because that behavior isn't acceptable. So, so these peace villages were centered for healing, right? It was not a punishment per se, but you definitely knew you were persona non grata in that village because those relatives had the say of what would happen to you. And we know over in Africa, where a lot of that indigenous wisdom is still more prevalent than here in the US, they have different scenarios like that,
Mhm.
where the family gets to choose, like the person's thrown into the center of the river, and the family gets to choose whether they are helped ashore or not. And so either way, you have to live with that choice that you make. And but what I was, when you were talking, Yigal, was about the self-sacrifice. When we are so connected energetically with ourself and all of life, that fear of leaving the physical body, it just becomes more of a, yeah, okay, now's the time. So yes, when say a predator animal is hunting, and then that prey, they reach that point where they're just like, yeah,
Can't
take
do
me,
anything more.
take me willingly, like I give myself to you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the indigenous ways were that same way, right? There was that respect and reciprocal, like, thank you for your life, thank you for giving us, this is going to see us through the winter, right?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. There was this reciprocal. It was not, and they were not viewed as an object that, okay, I am entitled to you because I'm a human and my life is more worthy than your life, all those kinds of things. So, but I do want to talk about the self-sacrifice, because that has been part of our domestication, that it is almost a requirement that we sacrifice ourselves for someone else, or because we love them, or for the greater good. The word sacrifice means to make sacred. So we've come a very long way, I feel, from those original, like the sacrifice might be, okay, I'm going to set down eating honey because the bees have said, hey, we're short this year. so we need all of this to get us through the winter, so you can't have any. And so okay, all right, I won't take any of that. So, but we've come a long way from that to where we actually think it's okay to harm ourselves, and then that in doing so, that will ultimately help someone. Mm-hmm. And I have never seen that actually on an energetic level to be true.
Yeah. Harming is never making sacred.
Yes. So again, those are choices that we make. Of course, a mother or a father would do whatever they could to make sure their children, would survive. We see that all the time. But for ourselves, we're still caught in an old paradigm of sacrificing ourself. And what happens is that then we reach a level usually of burnout to where then we can't function anymore. It impacts our health, and then we're not growing corn in our life anymore, is basically what I'm saying. So this is where it's reciprocal, right? So if I'm doing something for someone else, then I understand if that it may not actually be totally equal in that moment, but I know overall in my life there is a parity there, so that there's this inflow and outflow, and we have to have it in balance. And so I love the shaman that I go to Teotihuacan with, Francis Rico. I love how he says, the self-sacrifice where to appease the gods, right? We're beyond that. But now we've internalized it to where, no, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the greater good and be of service. But we leave ourselves out of it. And so then we're not actually in the flow of that. Everything is flowing out. Very little is flowing in. And then we wonder why we get burned out or sick or, this or that. And so he says, no, really what we're here to do now, celebration. It's all about celebration. And that is when we are in that flow of life, we can celebrate life, right? I facilitate a dreaming circle every season, and we dream for each other, right? So, and these are dreams for ourselves, because we know when I heal myself, when I do the things I need for myself in my life, and I'm in that flow, then that ripples out and actually does affect everything in the collective. Yeah. So it's some people call it sacred selfishness, right? Because we've learned that it's not okay to be selfish. And this is where, again, we want to be childlike, not childish. We want to be taking care of ourselves, not be selfish. But we dream for each other. And so anyway, we were all dreaming, and I'm drumming or playing different instruments for us to dream. And this season, we're working with the icebergs, the blue ice. And all of a sudden, I'm below, like so deep down in the water. I'm at the very bottom level of the iceberg. And part of it's attached to the land, part of it isn't. And all of a sudden, what comes is this huge wave, and it says, dreams are alive. And when I say it, we're like, well, yeah, of course they are. But it was one of those just where it smacks you in the face. I'm like, oh my God, no, there, it's alive. Like, it's actually alive. The dream is alive. So when we get those kinds of connections that just enliven us, right? They just set us on fire. All the energy is flowing through us. That's life.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think what the everyday life, like, oh yeah, I'm involved in life. That's kind of the lowercase life, right? And yes, we're going to have that, but the more we can bring in the awareness of that, it's alive. Life is alive. It's palpable. It's conscious. It's sentient. It's we are in relationship with it. I mean, it's energizing. It's totally empowering.
Amazing.
And then we know, okay, so this one little strand that I am weaving into that, it is important. How I think and talk and act, if those three are in congruence, that is power. That has the power to affect change for ourselves and others.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's language that we use also is embeddedness, how we are embedded in relationship and
Yes.
intertwined. And
We have to work really hard to not be.
yeah, the only way that we're not in relation is the thought that we're not. That's the only way that we're not. And in relationship to our conception of divine, divinity, God, is that the divine is love. It's not that they are loving, well, they are, but they are love, and everything springs from the divine. There's nothing that is not divine. So we are all aspects, units of those love, of that love. And as you had said many times, love is expansive. It's always growing, always growing. So this evolution that we speak of is the evolution of divine love, really, and our evolution, our part in it. And this is, I really feel that as you have picked up on this energy of unconditional love, I think that this is such a conscious calling moment to become conscious of ourselves as
Yeah.
units of conscious being love. And
Yes.
how the dream that you speak of, we talk of it in the words of potential, and how when we consider ourselves or others, and another thing too is, there's a Dorothy Day, she said that we only love God as much as we love someone else the least. That's all, that's the most we can love God, is how we love someone else the least. So if there's someone that we don't love, well, then we can't say that we love God. Everything is a part. So if I'm not loving this, then I'm not loving God. And we are part
Yes.
of God. We are part of that. So also, if we are not loving ourselves, then how can we say or claim loving others, loving God, if we don't love the self as well? So all that.
The first spiritual training that I was in my teenage years, there was a technique that we learned called love feast. And so someone would sit in the center of the circle, and each person would come up. And this is with people that have never met each other before, right? They're just taking this workshop, and they're being asked to come up and put their hands on the shoulder. The person can't really see them. They're behind them, and they just say, this is so-and-so, and I love you. Now, if they can't say that, they would say, like, the Christ in me loves the Christ in you, or the divine spark in me loves the divine spark in you, whatever, like that. Yeah, exactly.
Namaste.
Exactly. But this is back kind of before anyone knew that word. Okay. So, but the very first time I experienced that, my mom is one of the participants, and she comes and puts her hands on my shoulders, and she says, "Robin, this is mom, and I love you." And I burst into tears. I knew that I was loved. I knew my parents loved me. I'd never heard them say it. So again, the power of the spoken word. And so part of this unconditional love is letting the people know in our lives that they are loved, right? That we love them. And Rocking Bear had a prayer. He would say, I send you my love, I send you my gratitude, and I acknowledge you. So, but that's to any being, anywhere. It doesn't have to be a human. And so sometimes when I'm walking the trails there in Winston and with my husband, and all of a sudden he hears me talking to someone, and so he's like in front of me, he backs up, he thinks I've met a friend, and I have. It's one of the trees, right? And I'm just talking like it's a friend. Oh, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while, and how are you? And but it's that same where I would, to the water being, I send you my love, I send you my gratitude, and I acknowledge you, because we all need that level of acknowledgement of that we are part of everything, and we don't have to do anything to earn that.
That was the other thing too about when you were talking about, what was it? About self-sacrifice. I think a lot of times that goes toxic because we feel then that we can buy something with our sacrifice, that to make myself worthy of being loved, that I have to make some self-sacrifice, that I'm not worthy in and of my own being, simply by being a part of the whole, that I have to somehow
Would you say that
buy it.
toxic self-sacrifice is only located in the human realm? Because I was drawing the metaphor off of
I know, but I guess I don't know if I've ever really seen that in the
their toxicity
natural
right.
in the natural world. Uh,
The reason I asked,
obviously,
yeah,
the mom or the dad will protect their young
yes,
and all.
that's kind of where I brought it up.
Right. But as far as sacrificing, well, that's interesting, Yugal, because yes, there have been instances where the one I'm thinking of that just came to my mind was this team of huskies pulling sleds and all, and they got left behind at a research station. And so the head husky was a female, and she stopped eating so that the others would have enough food, right? And so yes, I can see what you mean. There is
Yes.
She consciously made that choice.
Yes.
And that's why I say animals are sentient. They have consciousness, they have awareness, they have soul. There's nothing for humans to have dominion over them.
If you'd let me, I'd like to start from there, because I think for many people, definitely including myself and probably others, it's harder to see unconditional love in the animal world, since we are also partly animal. We tend to, like my relationship to my cat, she stays because I feed her. If I didn't feed her the condition, she probably wouldn't come back. I also let her outside. She's an indoor outdoor cat. She's not just trapped inside my house. She comes back because I feed her. So me feeding her is my love. But it's we can see conditions there. Now, in the non-animal living world, like a tree, I'm so happy you mentioned a tree. There we see, and this was one of the reasons I went vegetarian so many years ago. An animal will run away from you if you try to kill it for its flesh. It will run. It will not give itself over to a human for no reason or any other predator. It might stop eating for the sake of its family or pride, but that's about it. A tree, on the other hand, gives fruit when the fruit is ripe. It drops the fruit to the ground. It would be wasted. It doesn't need it. It doesn't need its fruit that it supplies freely. So it's easier for me to come in contact with the unconditional at that level of non-animal, at that level of even the life-giving sun. Of course, if we're talking about life, we have to acknowledge Earth itself, the sun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we do know plants feel pain. We do know that they scream when they're cut and pulled out of the ground. So, but they're just in such a different form that they don't have that face. They don't, they don't have the vocal cords. So we think they're once removed from consciousness or whatever, but they're not. So yeah, we do know plants are totally conscious. And plants are even, so when you grow your own plants and you're in relationship with those plants, they will change their nutritional content and their, makeup to suit your health needs. So it's definitely a reciprocal relationship. They know that they're going to get eaten. They know they're going to get harvested, and yet they want to assist as much as possible. So
Yeah.
many people have plant allies that they work with and that talk to them and that they talk to them back, having conversations. So not just animals, you're right. And
I love that you don't have to have the element of harm involved in the quid pro quo, in the utilitarian relationship. A plant can give without dying. Some,
some
like a
do.
tree, can
Mhm,
give its seeds,
mhm.
its fruits, its leaves without dying. Not all. Of course, if I pull a carrot, that's
You can eat the carrot. Well, and you guys, I was going to say though, cats are interesting because I'll bet you, even if you didn't feed your cat, they would still come around and then they would just start hunting birds and mice, if they knew how to, they can feed themselves is what I'm saying. So it's not only that. And basically cats came around more for, to be in relationship with humans, really in a lot of ways. But I love the raccoon story, Bhaktirasa. We've all had, deer like that that come and there's, yes, they come because there's food, but our friends and family wouldn't come around either if we didn't feed them.
They say
sometimes they don't.
if you don't want your guests to stay, stop feeding them.
Sometimes they don't come even if you will feed them.
Yeah. So, oh.
Yes, man cannot live on bread alone.
Right, so it's how do y'all feel about opening it up now for
Sure.
to invite?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm going to invite the people who are online now in Zoom who are live with us. I'll invite you into the space here and you can join the conversation. And if you have questions comments, things that you would like to explore, things that you would like to add, we invite you to do so.
And I wanted to say how grateful I am because in a large way, I feel like I'm in your space right now. Um, Not that we're hosting White Star, but really she's hosting Bhaktirasa and I and our colleagues, and we're in your guys' space.
Circle.
I'll say that what I love coming together in circle like this, and why I do it is to continue to infuse these truths, right? Because when they're spoken, it's just I feel vibrant and like I'm immersed in the bath of love and light and black light, white light, and color and being human and bridging. Like I said today to somebody, I was at a crystal show, right? Buying rocks, more friend rocks, more rocks that talk to me. But I was
Great.
saying to them, I said, I feel like I'm walking one step in one world and one step in another world. And so being able to be in conversations like this just bridges that. My work out in the world is as a chaplain. So, again, work all of life and all its life giving and all of the transition into what we call death from here. But as White Star talked about, we're energy, right? We don't really leave. We're just change form. So I hold that as sacred. And so that's why I come, and that's why I love to sit in the midst of conversations like this. And so I'm grateful for this time and for immersing myself in the bath that feeds me and nourishes and allows me to enter into the feeling of what unconditional love feels like in open conversation like this, in shared space. So that's what I'd like to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you for participating and helping to create the container to hold the space and the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to share, have a question, a doubt, a concern?
I see Lisa unmuted herself.
Yeah, it's actually, my first name is actually Lisa Robin,
Oh, Lisa Robin.
not Lisa. That's okay. That's okay. I really appreciated just the opportunity to meet everybody that's in the circle today. I am Native, and you made me giggle, you know, that we love humor, and there's a lot of things you were saying that ground me back into my roots in a physical time when I'm not that strong, you know, when I have some medical issues going on. And so what I heard in all of this is just keep going and keep tapping into, finding ways to tap into my higher self. We all have one, but we have to feed it. Just like, which wolf are we feeding? That's what I always do with my mind. You know, what am I feeding? Am I feeding the one that's trying to destroy or the one that's trying to build? It's just, which is more in congruence with my authentic higher self. You know, that's the one I want to be feeding. But I love the way you say not to fear the shadow, because we learn so much from that shadow, and being in relation with that shadow and our higher being is what I think all of us innately are evolving to do. And I remember when you look at the word evolution, I mean, it starts off with love. When you evolve, it's love. It's based in love. It's not based in fear. So I'm just very grateful that Dana connected me here to this circle today. And I just thank you all for being who you are and for being enlightened beings that are able to express a lot of the wisdom that the ancient ones passed on for us to know. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa Robin, for
Yeah, thank you, Lisa Robin. My first name is Robin, and so I like Lisa Robin. That sounds cool together. Shirley, you had something to share?
I'll let you finish.
Oh, okay. Well, this might take us in a little different direction. I don't know, but I wanted to share a quote that I ran across recently from the Dalai Lama. He said, "This is my simple religion. There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophy. Our own brain, our own heart is our temple. The philosophy is kindness." So I love that, so that we don't get caught up in any one way of expressing, like this is the only way to love, right? Like we have to follow this set of rules in order to, to do this. And yes, that kindness is absolutely part of it, and how kind we can be to ourselves is how kind we can be to others. And the kindness, it changes day to day, right? Sometimes being kind to myself is, making sure I get out there and maybe do a walk when I don't want to do a walk. And another time it might be no, I'm going to stay in and just rest. So there's no set recipe. And so many people find comfort in having a recipe to follow, right? And that's why a lot of the organized religions are important for people, because they feel like they need those steps to follow. And what I do, and what many of us here are doing, is helping people to uncover their own ways of expressing that love for self and others. So this year we're working with the animal totem of electric eel. And it's to awaken us through that spark, through that electrical jolt, which hopefully won't kill us, just enough to really get our attention.
I would love to know how you manifested the eel this year.
Well, I work with the 13 Original Clan Mothers book by Jamie Sams, and each 13 moon cycles works with a specific clan mother. One of them is loves all things. And when she came to Earth, she was immortal, and she had a husband and children, and then of course they died. And she was so filled with grief and rage that for many, many years, she was just walking the earth, causing destruction and devastation. And she's in the ocean, and electric eel comes, shocks her, and says, "Wake up, look what you're doing. Look how what's going on inside of you is doing all of this out here." And so that awakens her, and then she has to cross that rainbow bridge of forgiveness for herself, for the destruction that she has wrought. So electric eel is part of that story. And when I heard that this year, 2025, was a year of awakening, that spark of unconditional love within us, that inner fire, awakening the inner fire, that passion, that creativity of unconditional love, electric eel was right there, and with a lot of humor, said,
I stand certified.
I can help you do that. I don't mind giving you a few little shocks here and there. Yeah.
I love to certify that, because this year is also in the Chinese zodiac year of the snake. So your
Yeah.
intuition is right on point in my book.
Yeah, it's fun to see how it all plays out. And that passion and creativity from within us, those dreams that we've had that we've held down or doubted, they're so vital right now. That's what's feeding life. And so we've got lots of energies that are trying to do the destruction bit. And so the way we do that is then to just really empower our own expression of love, however that looks, right? And it might not be a tangible thing. It might be dreaming for and holding that dream of reciprocal relationships. It may be knitting a sweater for someone who needs to be warm. We don't know what that's going to look like, but that's why each person then has to have that come up out of their own soul desire, and that's how we're feeding that fire, that inner fire.
And it's beautiful how you expressed and you were explaining the story of how eel shocked her and woke her up and said, look what you're doing. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're creating.
Yes.
So that allows us to accept the responsibility in our own life of what we are creating here and how we can choose to realign ourselves, to re-aim, like the archery term sin is to miss the mark. It's simply to miss the mark. So wake up and re-aim, retarget ourselves and consider everything that we do, our words, our actions, our thoughts, to aim them towards the center. And what is the center? It's towards love, and everything is seen in relationship to that. And that's to wake up to the reality of how much we create what's happening in the world.
Yeah. When the planes hit the Twin Towers on 9/11, I went into the Healing Lodge and started checking in. Okay, what can I do to assist? And I know how to help souls cross over, and I thought maybe they would want me to help do that. And it was like, no, we got all that covered. Why don't you take care of the violence in your own life? And I was like, oh, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned that from you actually a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About the Holocaust and about the mistreatment of Native Americans when this country was first exploited, and how to heal that, we need to heal the violence that we perpetrate in our own life against ourselves, against each other, against the world. It's no different what we do.
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah. And that self-violence is, it's so much bigger than what we do to most of us, of what we do to other people. We do more violent. We say more violent things to ourselves than to any other.
And it ripples out. It cannot help but ripple out. And one thing that came to me too a while ago is,
Bhaktirasa, if you don't mind, I wanted to let Shirley get her chance just so we don't completely
Okay.
lose
yeah,
her.
please.
Wow. Why, thank you. Now I was going to talk about unconditional love, and that it is a sort of a protection. And that when I work with children, and so many different types of children. And so when I go in there and I see myself almost like judging, but as soon as I change my thoughts, realize that I'm doing that, I say, I have to be open. I have to understand. I have to be more compassionate. And then it sort of gives me a sort of power that I wasn't expecting. And it allows me to still allow that unconditional love to flow. You know, even in the midst of sometimes the child is in pain and you may say a lot of things and maybe even hurtful things and maybe even do hurtful things. And if you are not in that framework of love and kindness, you could cause a greater problem with anger because anger just keeps escalating. And then, so it gives me the ability to speak with them and to express this to them as well, to sort of say, well, if what will happen with this anger? Is there another way? Can we not go there? I don't say, love because it's not, I do tell them I love them all the time because I think it does help. It sort of keeps the room calm. And loving all things, it sort of gives a respect to not just, I mean, even a chair, come on. I know it seems like it's so insignificant, but just being kind to a chair. Animals, most definitely. And then, you can see love in an animal. I saw one, well, I don't know, because now AI is so prevalent. I saw a koala, was a little baby koala was in a forest on the road in the forest. And someone went and picked up the koala. They were a little afraid and all that, but they did pick up the koala and they found the mother. And then they took the koala to the mother. And just to see that sort of tenderness, that kind of kindness, you see it. I mean, you see it in the whales. You see them when they follow each other. You see the families. You see the fish. You see the birds. Those are displays of love. It gives us an opportunity to recognize that. And sometimes in meditation, it helps you to get back on board, because I lost someone. And when you were talking about that spark, I lost someone, my godmother, whom I loved so very, very much. And then I sort of went into this sort of a despair, and I just slipped. I don't know what happened. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like a shock came and said, That's the past. You're in the now." So it's almost like that eel, like giving me that little shock, saying, "Wake up." And then when I was able to wake up, then I was able to share with others as well because someone lost their daughter to suicide. So, and I loved her too. So, but it sort of helped me to give the words of comfort for the child and for the family. So that's all I wanted to say, that love is my protection, kindness, connection, comparison, loves all things. Yes, Star, you are my teacher. You have been my teacher for many years. In Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I since moved away from there. Now I'm here, but we went to Teo. We've did some waterfalls. We've done quite a few things, and now I'm on my way to Mexico. I mean, I'm on my way to Ireland with Star. And it was wonderful meeting all of you, and much love to all of you, everyone here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, love that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yugala,
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you, Shirley.
for
You
remembering.
have great points. I mean, I don't know how much longer we want to go. It's really up to everybody, but I could riff off of some things Shirley mentioned. Maybe just for another few minutes, and then we'll see how we wind down towards the end. But I love that point about loving a chair. Because of course, any object like a chair was at one time made by a craftsperson, by an artisan, not manufactured in a factory with zero intention or attention, not for the sake of profit, as White Star mentioned earlier, but for the sake of functionality, for the sake of utility and creativity. So in that, I hear love as creativity. And then, of course, in your relationship to your students and your children, I hear love as comfort. And that's an interesting word because fortitude is strength. together, common strength, right? Building each other's strength. So that's beautiful.
When Shirley, you said love a chair, I was like, yes. And for me, it's my bed. I love my bed. Because that's where I do a lot of my dreaming. Oh, yeah.
That's so good.
In our tradition too, we can see that every atom is an embassy of God, because everything is coming from the divine. So everything can be honored and cherished and put in connection that way. And therefore, it's perfectly valid to love a chair.
Mhm.
It's an embassy of divinity. Each atom.
We also have, of course, one of the depictions of God in our tradition is the great cosmic being in dream. His dreams, her dreams, their dreams are what facilitate the manifestation and the annihilation of the universes. You know, that the exhale is the manifestation and the inhale is drawing it all back in. So White Star, you're very close to consciousness when you say, you know, dreaming. Yeah.
And we're all dreaming. The more intentional our dreaming can be, then the more congruent it can be. Yeah. But yeah, if there aren't any other comments, I was going to just share, if everyone has some water to hand, we could end with just a little water blessing.
Can I say, there's a poem there's a connectiveness. It's really, really quick, that I wrote. I don't know, Star, if I've
Sure.
read it before. The poem is called Born Again Trees. It's a connectiveness between humans and trees. It's very quick. Trees are dendrites propagating new life, reaching for a connection, wanting to shake your hand and say, we are brothers and sisters in the same light, more alike than unalike. We are continuances of life. We are the branch connection, the neuron of the cell, brothers and sisters in the same light, carrying the blood or phlegm through our veins, brothers and sisters in the same light. We experience loss and gain, brothers and sisters in the same light, lifting our arms to praise God, born again and again, brothers and sisters in the same light, have sprouts that need nurturing and guidance, brothers and sisters in the same light. Let us come together, join hands and arms and limbs with blood and phlegm to share this new day, this new light, as brothers and sisters in the same light. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Wado, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
So if you take your water and just put it up against your heart, your glass, and then you say that, you can say that prayer. I send you my love. I send you my gratitude, and I acknowledge you to all those water beings there that are connected to all the water beings all around the world. And then welcome good water, and you drink it in.
Well, thank you everyone for participating in this. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you, White Star, for joining and bringing your heart, your wisdom into this circle.